Hello, welcome back to XRaised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. Thanks for joining us here, where ideas, innovation, and industry leaders get the spotlight they deserve. I'm your host, Miles, and today we're talking about something that's got everyone buzzing: AI in law. But we're not here for hype. We're here for the real story. We'll be joined by a guest who hardly needs an introduction, but I'll give her a good one anyway, as always. She's an award winning barrister, an author, and a driving force behind one of the most talked about legal tech companies nowadays. She's been recognized as most influential CEO 2025 legal tech, and her work has attracted endorsements from some of the biggest names in the legal profession, even Justice Michael Kirby himself. She's leading MiAI Law, a company that's redefining legal AI by grounding it in evidence, structured reasoning, and real transparency. So, if you've ever wondered what's behind the hype in legal tech, you're about to find out straight from Laina Chan. Hi, Laina.
Hi,
Welcome
Miles.
back
How
to
are you?
XRaised.
I love your hair.
Thank you. Well, it looks like I'm copying you.
That was my first thought, actually.
Well, thank you so much for, not getting tired of coming back here. And this time, our topic, Lena, couldn't be more relevant. How my AI is cutting through the noise in a world full of overhyped AI tools. You've been, talking about AI in law for a while now here at X-Rays, and we've heard quite the backlash against overhyped tools. Why do you think hype has become such a problem in legal AI? And how is my AI taking a different path?
Do you know, yesterday I was speaking to Dr. Bryden Wang, who is an expert in trustworthy AI. And he said to me that there's a really low barrier to entry for legal tech tools. And that the problem was there were so many legal tech tools flooding the market that the firms didn't actually have the resources to be able to test which legal tech tools actually work and which ones don't. And that's a real problem for me as well, because when I attended the Legal Tech Summit in the Gold Coast a few weeks ago, and at that conference, there were all the chief information officers, the product developers, etc., from law firms, government, libraries, etc. They all have this understanding that if you're just talking about in the context of legal research, that legal research is carried out by just relying upon the language model itself, so that the quality of the research depends upon the language model that you're using. And for example, I've seen that LexisNexis says that they have fine-tuned Mistral.
Uh-huh.
And they say they have a whole suite of language models that they keep primed. And depending upon which language model produces the best answer, they swap that language model in and out. But I just saw recently, I think that they have fine-tuned Mistral. So that plus the conversations that I was having with the chief information officers and also what was being presented on stage really made it clear to me that everyone just thinks that what you do is you may have a database, right? But then it's
Uh-huh.
up to the language model itself to do all the work. And that the language model itself will go and look at the database and somehow, oh, maybe that's not even true because I'm not sure what they think, but it definitely comes down to the fact that they think it's the language model itself doing all the work. So it depends upon on what data it was trained and on what data it was trained, right? And so that's it.
Okay.
And so with some of the language, not the language models, with some of the chief information officers that I was talking to, I told them about what I can do, my AI law can do. And they said, well, just knowing what we know about language models, I don't understand how you can do this because I just don't see how it's possible. And so, pre-launch, like I was speaking to Michael Kirby, who was so excited, and he said we have to have a photograph taken now because we have to really mark this moment. This is like the moment just before Marie Curie discovered radioactivity. And I said to him, well, no, actually, it's actually the moment like just before the iPhone hit the market. and you went from, a normal analog type phone where you couldn't do anything on the
Right.
phone, you could just make calls, to
Mm-hmm.
getting an iPhone and being able to do
To a
back at the time,
smart device.
emails, all kinds of things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I said to her, that's what it's really like. And now I realize that actually it's true, because if everyone thinks that all tools can only be designed in one particular way, which is the way which I've just explained. And I know that Thomson Reuters and LexisNexis and VLEX, they have their own database, and there must be some kind of retrieval assisted augmented generation happening. They must
Mm-hmm.
be using their language models to go into their database, search, seize, summarize, and return the answer to the public, to the
Okay.
user. Right, they have to be using RAG, because otherwise, what is the point of their massive database? They have to be. They still seem to be just relying upon the language models to do all the work.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come into the market, and we've only just been through beta testing, and our database should be ready by the end of the week so that we can publicly release our whole product to the world next week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm facing this challenge of people thinking, well, how can you possibly be different? Because how can you possibly be different? Because surely you're only just relying upon a language model, and you are surely only just searching the very same cases everybody else is searching. So what's your value add? And so it's a real it's a much bigger challenge than
Mm-hmm.
I realized. And so when we lodged our provisional patent application back in August the 18th, the day after my son's birthday, and I was saying to my patent attorney, but is what we have done, is it really different to what anybody else has done? And he goes, yes, it is. And but I didn't realize how different it was until I went to well, first of all, the legal tech talks in London, where
Mm-hmm.
my operations manager actually went and looked at all the other products on offer and came back and said to me, no, what we've done is really different. And of course, that was also confirmed when I went and saw Alan and Overy, the people who run the Fuse program, which is their legal incubator. And they had said to me as well, yes, you're the first people who are delivering legal research from first principles, right? But then it really came home to me when I was at the summit a couple of weeks ago. And then, and also when this morning, when I was reading the, the, what do you call it? The directive issued by the Queensland courts about what judges could use AI for and what they couldn't use AI for.
Mm-hmm.
And in the directive, it set out their understanding of what AI does, what AI can do for judges. And it basically set out exactly what I've said to you, that if you're using research, then you are going to be relying on the language models. Language models work on probabilities and inferences, which is correct. And that, and the quality of their research output depends upon the prompt that you're using, which is the query you input into the system. And then the quality of the output is also determined by the training data upon which the language model has been trained on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're telling the judges correctly that, okay, use the language models, but be careful of these, be aware of these constraints, and check it against commercially available sources like Ostley, LexisNexis, etc. Check that the answers are actually anchored to truth, which is right. You always have to check your answers. But it shows a limited it demonstrates the same understanding of AI as all the chief information officers, etc., and the line peddled at the Legal Tech Summit at the Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have done is different. And now what we have done is different. We don't rely upon the language model, and we don't rely upon its training data to answer the questions posed posed to MiAI Law by the users. We don't do that. We have our own system where we only rely upon primary materials, which is cases and legislation. And for every single case, we have analyzed the case. We have analyzed the case and extracted elements from the case that we say that we use to form the basis of the legal research that we carry out when the user asks the question. So we don't, and that is the sole basis upon which we are using the language model. The language model is being sent into our own database where we keep a database. Well, we have multiple layers. How about that? We have multiple layers. The user asks the question. We then obviously have to work out what the user is really asking. We create a set of steps and reasoning process that our model has to be able to answer. And at each level of the question or of the reasoning process, we have to retrieve cases that will help answer that question. And so it goes to, but we're retrieving cases, but as part of that retrieval, we have to look at the analysis for each case that we have. So it's not like just we go in there into the database and just look at the whole pool of cases that's available. We don't just do that. We look at the analysis that we have prepared for every single case, and then we retrieve based upon our own analysis of what the cases say. And so at each step, we retrieve a set of cases, and then we keep going until the whole reasoning process is exhausted, and we have retrieved cases for each step of the reasoning process. Then we get the whole pool of cases that we have retrieved, and we sort it and we rank it to make sure that only the most relevant cases are sent to another language model to generate the answer. But it's not generated in any way that the model sees fit. I have written all the algorithms, and it's all been embedded into the system that sets out how the model is to behave. So I have embedded the legal reasoning method. So you get the facts, you have to set out what the issues are, you have to set out what the principles are in order to answer those legal issues. And then you have to then do the analysis to apply the facts to the principles, set out all the reasoning, and then answer the question and provide a conclusion. But every time it sets out a principle, that principle is tied back to the original source case, so that you have everything is footnoted. It's like a peer-reviewed journal article where everything you say has to be backed up by authority.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's too like a complex technical way of explaining the answer, but we are not just relying upon the language model answering the question. We're not just relying upon the language model's own training data. In fact, we don't rely upon that. We've built in all these constraints into the system because we can't always answer every single question that has been put to us, because we don't always have the data. So we've built in all these constraints where we have said, if you don't know the answer, you have to say so. You can't just go away and hallucinate and make it up, which is what language models do, because language models are trained to always answer the question. And if it doesn't have the data or the context to allow it to answer the question, it just makes it up. So I was reading a research paper yesterday that's called, I think they separate it between intrinsic and extrinsic in hallucination, but there's two types of hallucination. One where they've made up an answer that doesn't come from the user prompt, and another one where they've made up an answer which is not based on their training data. So those are the two ways in which a language model can hallucinate. But we put in constraints so that if you don't know the answer, then you just say so. You're not allowed to go away and just make something up.
Yeah. So it's safer. And what you're saying is it's not just about, building a shiny branded legal AI research tool or just another AI research tool. It's about what actually happens when lawyers put these tools to work. So my AI is basically doing it differently than others, from first principle, curating, revealing the sources. It's, I think, building more credibility in this sense. And I like how you summarizes it, and that's probably why also my AI has endorsements from barristers, solicitors, even former judges. But Lena, what do these endorsements mean to you? And what do they tell us about my AI's credibility with practitioners on the ground?
Well, I think that because we have developed something that is really a world first, and it's so different to anything that is out there, that really I think the endorsements for me will help me educate the public as to what is possible.
Mhm.
Because they might think, well, why on earth would I pay MiAI Law the monthly subscription? I mean, how are they in any way different? Why wouldn't I just use ChatGPT? Why
Mhm.
wouldn't I just use ChatGPT? Yes, it hallucinates, but how can they deliver anything significantly different to what ChatGPT might, right? And why would I pay them any more money than why would I pay them over paying LexisNexis or Thomson Reuters? LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters have the massive second database. They have all the secondary published articles, etc. Right? And that's what LexisNexis search and Thomson Reuters search. Like, why would we pay MiAI Law? Why wouldn't we just go to LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters because they have the database? And why would we? And how can it possibly be worth the money? So I think for me, the endorsements hopefully will help me at least get people to trial the product to see how we are actually different. Not only, I mean, they don't really have to know how we've done it, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter because the
Yeah.
proof is in the pudding. Every research report is very structured. Everything is footnoted, everything is hyperlinked, the reasoning is revealed. I mean, at the end of every report, the whole reasoning process is revealed. Every single case that we retrieve through the reasoning process and analysis is listed, all of them. And then we also list the subset of those that we have actually relied upon to prepare the answer, and then embedded within the report after every single proposition, we will say whether it was the ratio of the case or whether it's the obiter. The ratio is the key principle of the case. And then
Mhm.
we have a case authority that will tell them exactly where we got that from.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm just hoping the endorsements will help me get people to the public to at least try the product
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
and then
sure.
see for themselves.
And it's the difference that really matters, and that gives the real value that you offer. And I love that these endorsements are really unfiltered ones. And
Yeah.
you've appeared here on X-Rays Lena 35 times, which is a record around here. What keeps you coming back? And I'd love to know, how do you keep the message consistent while still making it fresh, aside from how you look?
I keep coming back because you asked really clever questions.
No, but it's all
No, that's
because
why.
of you.
No, because I guess I have a lot to say, and I guess because I have developed something that is leading edge. It's not cutting edge, it's the
Mhm.
leading edge.
Leading edge.
We're leading edge, and Michael Kirby has recognized that, and he's very excited about it. He still hasn't given me the photograph that we took to commemorate the moment because he wanted it commemorated that we were just about to deliver what he says, what radioactivity, the discovery of radioactivity.
Uh-huh.
Well, because it's a nice platform, and and as we go on, and I discover the views of what everybody else hold about language models, etc. It's just a useful way to continue the conversation and
Mhm.
hopefully educate the public. I don't know.
Right. Mhm. And I think it's also your consistency in making, as you've said, not just cutting edge, but leading edge tech. And it's really, I mean, the first. I've never heard of it. When I met you, I told you that from the very first time that it's really something that I've never encountered before in a space where buzzwords change weekly. Being your consistency is becoming underrated, isn't it? Staying on message while responding to the moment feels like a leadership lesson in itself. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's how I see you and how I see your what you're building. And this is quite intriguing. Some CIOs and decision makers struggle to believe my AI can actually do what you claim,
Yeah, that's right.
right? Why
But
do you
then
think?
because they're also flooded with so many legal tech tools, they're being
Mhm.
flooded by so many legal tech tools that it's very hard for them to work out which product to test and which products not to test. So then they're going with the big names, right? Like
Yeah.
Harvey, Lagora, Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis. They're going with the big names because at
Mhm.
least nobody ever got fired, for example, for hiring IBM. It's that kind of idea. Then I come out of the blue and I say I've done something different, but everyone else is saying they're doing something different, aren't they? I mean, that's what all the legal tech tools say. They're all different. And so, how are the poor CIOs or the judges or anybody supposed to separate the wheat from the chaff?
Mhm. Yeah.
It's a problem. It's a problem. It is a problem because yeah, I mean it's great that I've developed something new and leading edge, but how do you get the message out there that
Uh-huh. But
unlike everybody else who say they have also done that, I actually have done
mhm.
that.
But how do you overcome it? I mean, the skepticism, the doubts.
Well, I think the people who have used it have not are not in doubt. So I guess I just have to, get the barristers and my network to try, and then they can see for themselves. We really want just a product-led growth. It just has to be. The product has to speak for itself.
Mhm. So they
I don't
they'll
think marketing, yeah, it's just getting it in front of people. They try it and they can see for themselves.
well.
Product-led growth is the best growth of
Mhm.
all. That's what they taught us at Harvard Business School.
Mhm.
It
I
is,
love
isn't it?
how
Because
you've
you,
been, and I love how you've been very transparent about this, Lena. It's really the ultimate credibility builder. And I like your point. Also, I remember your scope better to be clear on what you cannot do than to
yes.
promise the impossible. I mean, you've always emphasized on that, which is a refreshing approach. So, looking 2 or 3 years down the road, Lena, what does a credible, trusted legal AI ecosystem look like? And where does my AI fit into that picture?
Well, I want my AI to set the benchmark of what it is legal AI research tools have to deliver
Mhm.
with all the features that I said to you, right?
Yeah, not
You
being too magical.
Yeah. I mean, during beta testing, somebody was using my AI law like a trivia machine. Like they
Okay.
were upset or disappointed that we couldn't tell them when was the first time a particular principle had been considered in Australian law. When
Mhm.
was the first time a particular English case had been used in Australian law? But we're not a trivia machine. We don't track information like that. I can't possibly tell
Okay.
you we can't possibly tell you when was the first time because we can tell you which cases have considered a particular principle, and we can track the development of the principle through the case law. But we're not a trivia machine, and we cannot say this is the very first time an Australian court has considered this particular principle. It's just impossible because, our database has some Australian cases, most Australian, but we don't have every single Australian case. We don't have like every single remote tribunal or, every single sort of specialist court, etc. We don't have that. And it's also not the way the whole model has been built. We can definitely track development of a principle over time, but we
Mhm.
cannot tell you when was the first time
Yeah.
anything was done.
Mhm. Again, less like replacing lawyers and more like giving them a power tool. And who doesn't like that?
Well, anyway, the beta users were all very generous with their endorsements, and a lot of them said how it had really then more effectively empowered them. Like the senior counsel said, it helped him unearth an argument that he hadn't thought of, that he wouldn't have thought of without the research.
Mm-hmm.
That the solicitors was saying that it really helped him with contract review because it unearthed against issues that he wouldn't have thought of.
Uh-huh.
And then I have I have a case study. It's not in the endorsements, but Elisa Crepin, who's a partner at Johnson Winter Slattery, has authorized me to use this case study. So she was in the middle of a remote hearing and she had to research a question. She said that she didn't have time to do it manually, but she used MiAI Law to do the research. It produced an answer and
Mm-hmm.
she gave it to the barrister. Then I was really worried that she hadn't checked it, but she said no, she did. Of course, she had checked the answer and
Uh-huh.
made sure it was correct before she gave it to her barrister. And so it really helped her out mid-trial. And that's very empowering because, obviously I've been in trials before where questions come up, you don't know the answer and you just feel lost. And so, that was very empowering for her and her barrister, I assume, because we were able to, mid-trial, when you're feeling really lost, give you the answer and help you plug a hole. So I don't think, I always designed MiAI Law to be a tool of empowerment. And I know our motto is that we, think like a lawyer, cite like a scholar to allow you to lead with confidence. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole motto or ethos
Mm-hmm.
underlying what I've been trying to achieve with MiAI Law.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who have tested it have said that, effectively. They're so exuberant in their endorsements, right? Because
Yeah.
when you ask people for references, they're not normally so
They're into it.
complimentary, like they're so enthusiastic
Yeah.
and so generous with their endorsements. So it's very exciting.
Well, I think that's what happens when you believe in the product
Well, I
and
mean,
you
you can
trust
believe
it.
it. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we had about 40 beta users over 2.5 weeks, and we didn't release them all at the one time. We staggered. I had like 5 people starting or 4 people starting, and then I just kept introducing more and more people to the time to where we got to about 40. And this is only over a 2.5 week period. But in total, they put in about 5,000 questions. 5,000 questions over a 2.5 week period where we started with the first 5, 6 days or more. It was only 4 people testing. And then
Mm-hmm.
the numbers just kept going up so that by the end we may have had 40. But for a lot of the time, it was 5 people, then maybe 10 people, then 15. It was very slow. It was a very slow release. And we only got to 40 maybe in the last few days because I didn't, we couldn't handle in the beginning all the demand because we didn't expect it all, even with 5 people testing. And
Uh-huh.
so we had to keep scaling our back end. So we don't have
Gradually.
we don't have the engagement issues that some other platforms might have.
Mm-hmm. And of course, building from first principles, not from hype.
Yeah. And so, two barristers, the senior counsel and the barristers say that, we don't just find the information, we synthesize it. So that's the difference between us and Lexis and
Others.
Thompson Reuters, everybody else, right? They find the information and they don't synthesize it. They find it, they summarize it, and they give it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT deep research do appear to synthesize it, but then it hallucinates.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always trust it. And because doesn't actually have legal reasoning embedded into the model, it will
Mm-hmm.
find cases that they think are relevant, but not really relevant to the issue.
And this is being trustworthy when compared to any other legal research. So thank you so much once again, Lena, for sharing your insights and for breaking down some of the myths around legal AI and how different my AI law is. So thank you so much again. It's a pleasure having you, as always.
Thanks. Thanks, Miles.
Thank you. On to our 37th. Well, if you've been tuning in, folks, you've probably picked up on a few key things. Hype doesn't hold up. Credibility is built on transparency. And when it comes to legal AI, apparently it's not about doing every single thing, it's about doing the important things right. And I think that's a lesson that goes beyond law. In any business, being precise, clear, and transparent always beats being loud. So go learn more about them at myai.law. And that's a wrap for today's episode of XRaised. Thank you guys for staying with us. Go catch more of our episodes after this one. This has been your host, Miles and Laina. Stay focused and inspired with XRaised.